Welcome to Owen and Beru's Barbecue. We're back after a long hiatus, and we have grilled up some casual surface with our chefs here tonight. We've got Nick.
Hello there.
As well as Chris.
Good evening.
Myself, I'm Matt, and we are going to talk about Solo, a Star Wars story. I don't know where we should begin.
Kind of.
Perhaps, as Chris would like to, our initial reactions, because truth be told, we haven't talked about it. So aside from maybe Nick, seeing maybe a few comments I may have, put on the Facebook group, other than that, we don't really know what we think of the movie.
I'll be honest with you, I haven't talked to anybody about it yet.
Yeah, nor I, except for my sister.
I think I saw it. When did I see it? I think maybe it was Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember what it was. So this is actually my first time even talking about the movie. So I guess I'll go first. How about that?
Go for it.
Spit take. My initial review of the movie was, I had fun. It was pretty good. Decent time. I enjoyed the popcorn. Was it a Star Wars movie? I don't know.
Nick, I know you are probably the grilliest of the grills. You actually even called this a discussion, not even a review. So, what say you?
I don't want to get into my full-on.
Sure. How about just your initial take, and not necessarily?
Yeah, spit takes. Let's go.
Okay. So I basically, when it was done, I went kind of exactly like Chris. I was like, I was entertained. Most people that have asked me, I've said, like, you won't hate it. Like, it's entertaining. But I agree with Chris. Like, is it a Star Wars story? So I gave it like a B-.
Okay.
But I enjoyed it more than Force Awakens and Last Jedi. So.
Interesting.
Which that didn't take much.
Okay. All right. My initial thoughts leaving the theater. There's a lot to digest there. I kept going over certain scenes, but mainly breaking it down into like, this was kind of like two heists. And I liked it, but I didn't love it initially. I was fortunate enough that right after we saw it, my family, we saw it together in the morning. We actually drove for about 3 hours. So we had this time afterwards where we were trapped in the car, and we were able to kind of talk about it and break it down. And I'll give my wife's initial reaction when I asked her, and I thought it was a pretty good take. She said, yeah, it was good, but did we need it?
Yeah, that's actually the perfect sentence for it.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, my wife laying down some Star Wars shade, I was kind of surprised.
Well, that was my disappointment with the film. I mean, I still, like I said, I was entertained. I mean, I'm glad they made it, I guess. But then again, that was my 1 cent review was, it's a good film, but ultimately forgettable. And it made me sad about it, because I was like, you don't need this film at all, really, to enjoy other films. Or
I'll tell you why they need this film. They needed this film to set up how they're going to make money on Star Wars. Think about it. So, like, you look at, what's his name? What were those guys that they signed on for those 3 extra movies there?
The actors, the actual actors.
No, the directors. They signed on to do 3 more Star Wars flicks. I can't remember who they are.
Oh, Ryan Johnson.
Yeah. Thank you. So he signed on to do how many more? Like 3, right?
Yeah, he got his own trilogy, which they have not announced like what time or what they're going to be about.
Well, I think they kind of set it up with this, right? So, I mean, I think there's a whole boatload of story that could happen and unfold after Solo, pre and or parallel A New Hope.
Yeah, but like I agree that they left it in an ambiguous way that you could make a sequel to this, but I would just want one. I think it would be you could go in different routes with it. I would think it would be a perfect fit for a Kenobi film, actually, not a Solo film.
So I agree. I totally agree. I think it could be a good
before we
gateway.
Before we segue deeper into the what could be's, I just want to kind of make sure that, because we've actually stayed pretty spoiler free up to this point, I would say, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Are we going to throw that out the window?
Well, I just wanted to let listeners know, if they've listened this far, I think now we can kind of start to say, okay,
2 minutes in,
listener beware, because the spoilers are going to
listener beware, because we don't care, and we are going to talk about this movie.
Would you recommend the Star Wars fan to go see this movie?
Yes, I would. I mean, at the end of the day, I enjoyed it. I think one of the reasons why I enjoyed it, even though it's one of the many Star Wars films they're coming out with, right? And there's a lot of argument did we need it? I think overall, no. But I still enjoyed being a part of that universe and hearing and seeing a story of that universe that didn't feel like I was getting batted over the head with Star Wars. Here's another Star Wars story. This was like Ocean's 11 in space. It was actually a pretty decent heist flick, right? With characters that we know that we're going to love, and we're going to kind of start to see the beginnings of their story. There were some cool head nods, and I'll say one thing for sure: Donald Glover was the star of this cast. His Lando was unbelievable. Han Solo, I don't even know his name. He was the most forgettable. He wasn't bad. He just was not. He didn't have the swag. He didn't have any of the Solo that we know. But no one can be Harrison Ford. Yeah. But I will say, to answer your question, should a Star Wars fan see this movie? Yeah. Quit your bitching about all these movies and just enjoy yourself. Forget about it for a second. You're not a goddamn movie executive. You don't have to make the decisions for the freaking studio. Just go, shut up, go, enjoy yourself for a couple of hours. It's a fun movie. Have a good time. Treat yourself.
You just triggered so many fanboys right now.
Oh, shut up, fanboys. I don't care.
No, that's a good breakdown. And Alden Enric. Yeah. Einrich. I always mess up his last name, and I feel bad because my last name starts with an E. But maybe he was kind of more the Luke Skywalker, where he's the Mark Hamill. Maybe not as strong as, let's say, the Donald Glover in this instance.
I agree. I didn't not like Donald Glover. I definitely thought he was the best actor of the actor trying to be a character, of the returnable characters. I don't think he ever delivered a line, though, exactly the way I think Billy D would. The only time I ever actually heard was his very first line before you actually see him. When he's walking into the casino or wherever they're playing the first game, you can hear him say one line off camera, and I was like, oh, that actually sounds like Billy D. But I never got that smoothness that Billy D delivers. But it's just it's like Chris saying, it's hard for anyone to be Han. It's not Harrison Ford, because I never really believed him as Han Solo. I almost had to imagine him as another character because he just was not Han Solo. I mean, he didn't do a bad job. I wouldn't say he ruined the movie, but I didn't really ever believe him as Han.
I think the whole Han and Chewie part was, I know for some fans it may not have been as rewarding, but to me that was, it never gave me the goosebump moment that I would have liked, and I think that's where it kind of falters and doesn't go from being a good movie to a great movie. It never, when they're in the mall and, you hear the John Williams Asteroid music and, that sequence when it is Han and Chewie finally in the Falcon, it was bringing some of the feels there, but I don't know if I ever really got that, I'm in a lived-in shoe. But I liked the surprises that it did take. And in some ways it's understated because it's the first Star Wars movie that we've gotten where it's not about the Galactic Empire taking over. I mean, it is. It's in the background, but it's not. That's not really what's in the foreground of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no Jedi versus Sith in this, so that like the stakes are a lot lower. Just going from his humble beginnings all the way through. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about the Chewie introduction?
Oh, okay.
I mean, we could go another way.
Because you were saying Han and Chewie, so that already kind of made sense. Because to me, I would argue that the Han and Chewie stuff is some of the best parts of the movie. Because I liked, even though there wasn't a lot, I liked seeing Chewie because he's basically cut out entirely out of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. He's got like maybe a minute screen time, and it's almost kind of like the C-3PO R2-D2 relationship in A New Hope, in that he got a lot of lines, but naturally you don't know what he's saying until Han translates for you. And I liked that because you actually felt like there's some kind of relationship there. Well,
and there's some that you read between the lines. One of my favorite moments is when it's right after the shower scene, which was
right.
Pulled a laugh from me. But it's right after that where Chewie comes out and he actually talks to Han, and Han says, "No, they took you because of me."
Right.
You have to imply that Chewie actually said, "Hey, they took you because of me," and Han and Chewie were equals throughout. So I really liked that. Han never treated Chewie as less. I didn't even feel like the life debt was a thing. I mean,
mm-hmm.
If the life debt is an actual thing that's going to occur, I almost feel like they both.
I think that Disney will avoid that because that's why he's with Han.
Sure.
Because they've already got rid of the slave Leia; she's no longer canon. And
we got the droid uprising.
Right, and we got the droid. Yeah, the droid. Actually, that was something else we should talk about too, if we can remember later on, because that was something that kind of bothered me, just being an EU fan. But going to your original question though, with the Chewie introduction, it was one of those scenes where I was glad they didn't do a lot of fan service. Like there's that one line where the stormtroopers are in the airport or spaceport, and you hear one of them go like, move along, and you're kind of like, okay. And then the whole mud pit fighting arena to me was a little too much like, Return of the Jedi. And I was
Rancor time.
Yeah, and I was like, please don't do that. And then Chewie kind of coming out, I was like, oh, okay. But then I was like, I really can't see Chewie wanting to eat Han, but maybe. But I mean, I think after you get the establishment that he's not going to kill Han, and then from there on, it's fine. But yeah.
How did you like the reveal that he knew how to speak Wookiee?
That was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was convenient. But.
Yeah, but like it was different than any other time.
Right. Well, we've never seen him use.
Yeah. And I was like, I thought he was like, at first, I thought he was like joking or like just trying to mock him. And I was like, what are you doing?
Way to tick off the Wookiee.
Yeah. But I will say, though, the arms being ripped off, that was a nice little.
Finally got to see that
head nod.
I was very happy with that.
And the moment, too, it wasn't just ripping the arms out. It was the line that follows where he says, like, hey, that I could have used that one, like that outfit or that uniform. I liked their camaraderie. I'm not saying that I didn't, but I'm just saying that's out there.
So let's hit rewind for a second. Actually, let's go back in the movie, probably about 25, 30 minutes. And when Han is trying to get his way into the flight academy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of an Ellis Island-esque scene when it's revealed as to how Han Solo gets his name. Now, I'm guilty of not reading, canon Star Wars books or not really into the comics or anything. So I don't know, and I haven't Googled this, but is the way they handle it during the movie the way that goes down, or has it been described like that in the past?
No.
Okay, so for those listening who are now spoiler free and haven't seen the movie or don't care about spoilers but haven't seen the movie, so when he's in line and he's registering himself, he says his name is Han, and he says, "Well, what's your last name? Who are your people?" And Han doesn't really respond. He says, "I'm by myself," and I'm on my own. I have no people. So the Imperial recruiter guy says, "Solo, eh?" Clickety clack 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 clack. Han Solo, welcome. Blah, blah, blah. I was like, I had that was my one of the couple cringy moments I had. I was just
that was my first cringe moment.
I was like, ugh.
And I just want to point out, I'm glad that we brought up the Solo, how he got his name, because I just read an article about that Bob Iger from Disney, the Disney CEO. I think his first name's Bob. I don't know. It's Iger or something. I'm not down with the Disney. Anyway, he greenlit this movie based on that scene.
What?
Yes. And I just have to say, okay, if Disney's going to be upset about the returns of this movie, then we need to go back to the Iger greenlighting this movie based on that scene alone, because he doesn't know what's going on as far as a Star Wars fan, as far as, you know, what we actually want to see or care about. I think all of us were in agreement that we didn't want a Solo movie. We would have been happy with 5 other characters in front of Solo. We could probably find another 10. So I feel like that is kind of a thermometer for how tone deaf Disney might actually be to what goes on with Lucasfilm. Just saying, it's kind of a weird moment because we all 3 did not like that moment. I know there's a lot of other probably fanboys in our age group that were like, ugh.
Yeah. So around that time, we were also introduced into a new character that we haven't seen before, and that's Kira.
Khaleesi?
Yeah. Khaleesi Kira. Played by, I don't even know her name, Khaleesi.
Emilia Clarke.
There you go. That's the one. Who is Han's love interest of their den of abandoned children, as I was thinking of it as, and their whole plot was to get off the island and they get separated. Now, if you fast forward a bit, Han goes through all this big ordeals and he meets up with her later on in the movie. And what? That was my second cringe moment, was when he finally meets up with her, who's his female love interest from 2 or 3 years ago prior. All of a sudden, she is like a high-ranking advisor to one of the biggest crime syndicate bosses. Like, how did that happen? I mean, I think the undertones there was that she was totally banging the dude, but I get that. But what? How does that actually occur? How does that happen? That felt kind of like a cheap or lazy writing to kind of get her into the story.
That's what I was going to say. It felt extremely lazy writing to me. It was one of the first ones where just reanalyzing the film, because the first 20 minutes of this movie are kind of slow and clunky, but it does one justice in that it's setting up a character motivation for Han. Is that he's separated, so now it's his mission to get his ship to rescue the love of his life, or his partner, whatever you want to call it. And you're like, okay, I'm buying this. Okay, I can see it. I can see doing everything in order to get back to her. That's cool. But then, exactly what you're saying, Chris, she pops up on screen and you're like, whoa. So you're basically throwing away that entire motivation for that character. And so then you're going, well, what was the whole purpose of the first 20 minutes of the film then? If you're going to do that, why didn't you just cut out you could have gone in another direction.
I think it sets up Han's vulnerability. And the fact that, once she shows up, I was kind of wary of her at the beginning because I was like, oh man, she's going to break your heart, dude. But that didn't happen. So everything seemed to be true. Based on the trailers, I was already kind of expecting this time jump. The fact that they would have known each other when they were younger because of that hot rod scene with the blue, I don't know, it's not a hot rod, but whatever the vehicle is, to where we see her all kind of done up. So I was already kind of expecting a time jump with her character. So that didn't take me by surprise so much. I think that I mean, there's so many Star Wars like, hey, this R2 unit happens to like have known Obi-Wan Kenobi this whole time. I mean, I don't know. There's so many like what if moments in Star Wars that could drive you bonkers. I think, I don't know. I liked her as a character though, because
well, she's the safe character.
Safe character.
Yeah, like I mean, I was going to get into this like as as in the three women that are in this movie. You have three stereotypes. You have her, which to me is the damsel in distress who no longer is a damsel in distress, which is a really cool character because she was kind of vulnerable in the first 20 minutes, but then she's strong but yet still vulnerable in her own way. And then you have the droid
L3. We have to talk about that as well, but continue.
Yeah, and you have L3, who's the super strong feminist character who is a bit over the top at times with the getting out the message, which I found a little annoying. But that's just me.
Wow, that's surprising.
Yeah. And then you have the other character played by Thandie Newton, who to me is a really bad character. And the fact that they wrote her as this strong, independent, and interesting character, and then all of a sudden makes one of the dumbest movie mistakes. I mean, I didn't even understand it. I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in a movie.
Which one was that?
And the fact that she died.
The fact that she just like blows up hey, this was our big one, like why, like if they were gonna retire and like there's a way out, like I don't know, like have her, I don't know, there's so many other ways that they could have killed her, and then of course it would have thrown Beckett's character into maybe a bit more of a depression where he does lean on Han and he does trust Han, and you think, okay, they're three against the world.
Who had a worse death? Thandie Newton's character.
Well, she probably didn't feel it. So.
Or L3.
L3 is a droid.
L3 had the worst death, though.
Here's the deal. I actually did pull up a couple of articles. I read this one article. I was like, wow. I just kind of feel bad now. But you think about L3 was like this, and I'm totally personifying a robot the second here, as I apologize. But L3 was this confident, like, we don't get enough respect, we droids, and it was a complete, I mean, you can draw your own conclusions as to what the theme was when they were trying to build L3's character base of how strong of a droid she is, and how she doesn't get enough respect, and how the galaxy treats them as garbage because they're droids, right? And she dies in the battle on Kessel, which, by the way, that was the Kessel battle. That was the first scene that Ron Howard jumped in and started directing. FYI, which kind of tells a lot about the tone of the story
and the pacing of the first half.
Exactly. So it's actually when it starts to get pretty decent. But so she dies, and what's the her final wish was probably just to be respected and not be considered as a possession or some low life form, and then she's doomed to live out the rest of her existence as the flight navigation of the Millennium Falcon.
In the Falcon, yeah.
Not to mention the weirdness of that relationship with she and Lando.
Oh, I love it.
That's what I was about to get to too, because like that was another cringeworthy scene to me, in that like I liked Lando except for that one scene. I was like, it's a droid, okay?
How does it work? Oh, it works.
Yeah. Well,
this totally makes sense in this modern. I mean, when he's caressing her and she's dying in his hands, like think about the last time you like accidentally destroyed your phone. It's that level, except an actual walking machine that does everything for you.
Yeah, but Lando was totally boning that robot.
Yeah, that's what was weird, because like you knew in that scene when he's almost crying, you're like, this is weird, because like C-3PO got blown into bits and they still put him back together and he's fine. So like to me, I'd be like, dude, it's a droid. People are looking. Like, come on, like you can put her back together. It's fine. Like, there's no reason why you're crying over this. But that was just me going like, why is he crying over a droid? I don't get it.
I totally immediately thought about how people cannot separate from their cell phones.
I mean, it's a great analysis, comparison.
The caressing of the screen and just being like, "You're gone," like
I lost all my contacts.
I like all my photos from that.
I didn't back you up to iCloud.
Right, exactly.
City.
Yeah, but going back to the Thandie Newton's death, Chris, like, it's just because like it makes no sense. If you're a criminal, you're always out for yourself. And you can see in the scene prior that her and Woody Harrelson's character clearly have a relationship. He does have some attachment, at least to that character. And it's just money when it comes down to it. No criminal is going to sacrifice themselves for money when they can do it some other time or get the heist some other time. So for her just to go, I've got no other way, bye. It's like, what?
Right.
It was just dumb.
Yeah.
And
okay, you remind me of a couple of themes here. While we're talking about bad deaths, the pilot death.
Oh, right, yeah. You know who that was? That's Jon Favreau.
Jon Favreau, yeah.
Oh, right.
Like the pilot death was just like, dude, how many people in movies have gotten shot in the shoulder and lived more than 4 minutes?
Yeah.
It was pretty deep, though. And clearly...
Dude, he had 17 arms, whatever. Come on. And then, but which leads me for another discussion too, though. So surprises, as far as characters and how well they were done or how unwell they were done. Woody Harrelson
did a great job. He always does a great job.
Did a great job. That character was awesome. I totally dug that character. And Vision, what's his name? Paul Bettany. What'd you think of him?
I think for how it was written, he probably did the best he could. I think the character needed a little bit more, in my opinion. But,
so what's the deal with the pulsating red scars?
Yeah, that's
I assumed that he was on drugs because as soon as he died, all of the red went. And if you looked at his eyes were all pink, like he's been like spent way too much time.
I was hoping there was some dark side in him or something. Like I couldn't figure out what that was about. I mean, like he was. Probably, I mean, there are times where I was like, "Wow, this dude's pretty BA." Like he could have been a pretty bad villain, but I think Nick, I think you're right. I think they're missing something with him. Like I think that he existed in two rooms, right? Like he existed in his own office, and that was it, right? So I think that he probably could have, and of course the party, or whatever. But like your introduction to the guy, like the first scene that you see of him, it is like, whoa, this dude's awesome. Like he just totally just takes this really badass like double-bladed knife and like toasts this dude, and like you're like, oh, okay, this guy means business. But I just I think that I think you're right. I think they could have done a bit more with him. I think they could have done a bit more with the antagonist side of this entire story.
Absolutely.
I think you got like half staff essentially from all of the bad guys in this movie when you had a little too much effort from the protagonist side in 5 different directions. But that's just my 2 cents.
I think who you're missing, Chris, is Boba Fett riding Slave One.
Yeah. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. Dude, there were so many opportunities, and I'm like, it's gonna happen. They even mentioned Bosk. They said him by name. I'm like, oh, dude, it's going down. I'm gonna win this bet. I'm totally gonna win this bet. But lo and behold, no, there was no Boba Fett, and I was like. And the news that came out the week of the release that Boba Fett's getting his own movie, I'm like, dude, he's
like a sure thing, right?
He's totally gonna be in this movie. And then you saw the Mandalorian armor in the background of that cool room. I'm like, dude, it's gonna happen. It's gonna be it. And every time I look, I'm like, where is he? Where is it? Where's the ship? Where is it? Was he gonna come out? What's going on? No, damn it, no.
Did you guys see the temple idol in that room? Apparently, the idol from Raiders of the Lost Ark is in that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I did not see that.
One of the Easter eggs. So, but
we just saw it the one time. So
yeah, I know I have too. So, but this is just based on what I've read.
All right. Bigger elephant in the room.
Okay,
there's
a bigger elephant in the room. We have to talk about the phone call.
Okay,
do you want to do that now, or do you want to save it for later? because there's definitely a couple of other things I wanted.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Well, like because you're talking about like antagonists and things like that. Like, because to me, one of the ones that really irked me was the infant's nest. Is that how you say it?
Inverness.
Inverness, yeah, because they're set up early on as just the
Enfys.
Infus nest.
Not Enfi, because I thought it was Enfi when I first saw it.
I thought it was like Inverness without the R.
Yeah. Well, not everyone knows what we're talking about. Yeah, because like they're just the what did they call them? Just pirates, marauders. They were trying to rob them or the thing. So you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. There's always someone that's trying to rob you while you're robbing someone else. Okay. But then at the end, when it's revealed who they are, I thought that was done extremely poorly because you don't really quite grasp that they're the beginning of the rebellion. And it's just, I didn't like that.
I never really took it as that they were the beginning of the rebellion. I mean, with all I've seen through Rebels and even in Revenge of the Sith and what they said, all that.
This is taking place before Rebels, though.
Right. No, I get that. But, even with Mon Mothma and all of the deleted scenes from Revenge of the Sith, I don't know. I've never, when they presented it, I wasn't like, oh, this is the beginning of the Rebels. I guess I can accept that as canon now.
Yeah, well, or at least elements of the rebellion. Sure. Because you definitely had the political side with Mon Mothma and Bail Organa and things like that. But this is from that one little speech she gives of like these people were being taken advantage of and now we're no longer, and you're kind of like, oh, and it was a twist in character motivations that kind of I felt was supposed to be have more weight to it than it did, because at that point I didn't care. I was like, okay,
they cheated.
Yeah.
It didn't bother me. So I will say that when they first appeared, it took me a second there because the music was kind of a giveaway. When the Marauders first appear and they try to steal it, they bring in this kid choral kind of sound. It's like a children's chorus kind of like movement to the music.
I thought the score
sounds like hopeful or like dark and hopeful at the same time. And then they brought that music at the end again.
So it's
I thought
Enfys Nest, Enfys Nest.
Yeah, Enfys. Okay.
And
I thought this was the weakest score of any Star Wars film, though. I was not impressed at all with it.
I wasn't paying attention really.
I have not had a chance to dissect the soundtrack yet. Except for the John Williams opening and knowing that the asteroid field is in there somewhere in the middle. But anyway, apparently that Enfys Nest is based off of the Cloud Riders, which was some 1977 Marvel appearance. It was basically like issue 7, like right after. So it looked together there.
It looks like her story is going to be continued a little bit with a comic book that's going to be released in August of this year as well.
Oh, okay.
Called Star Wars Beckett 1. I don't know if that's a working title or whatever, but it's a one shot that will take place prior to Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Beckett then.
What's that?
Must be about Beckett then, if it's called Beckett.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So. Tobias Beckett.
All right. Let's talk about the phone call.
Okay.
So there's an all important phone call that kind of takes place. Should have known that this Crimson, what is it?
Dawn.
Crimson Dawn. Thanks. Had
Wolverines. Sorry, I said it like 3 times in the theater.
Should have known it had something to do with our red-skinned friend. So as soon as his voice came across, though, I knew it was Maul. So it was awesome that they used the voice, but then also the body of.
The upper torso. So yeah, like I was kind of excited about this too because you guys know I mentioned this back when we first started owning Brews. I do play Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes on my iPhone, and I've learned quite a bit about characters I did not know a lot of, like Savage Opress and Lady Townsend, the Night Sisters, all of those guys. And so I thought that it was a really cool connection for me because now I get it. But going back, she makes a phone call. Kira calls somebody, and it was revealed that it is indeed Darth Maul. Like, how the hell did that happen?
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, God, I know. I was kind of pumped about that. So for people who don't know, at the end of what is it? Episode one, Phantom Menace. I'm trying to think of the name of the movie. He gets cut in half and falls. Right. So he's found by his brother, I believe it is.
Well, the way it's revealed in the Clone Wars cartoons is not. Savage doesn't. Well, yeah, you're right. Savage does find him. He seeks him out, but he brings him to. Yeah. Because when they find him, he's basically this shriveled, nothing, broken person who's basically gone mad from 20 years of. Not even 20
suffering.
Years. Yeah, suffering. Yeah, and he has no legs. But then he gets confident again. He gets rebuilt because of his brother, and then of course, I don't give too much away. But yeah, it's an interesting story arc for sure. I think because those are
storyline through Clone Wars.
Yeah, it's those are all Katie Lucas's storylines, which is some of the best written Clone Wars episodes in my opinion. Which is George Lucas's adopted daughter.
So check my knowledge in this one. I'm not quite sure how if I'm 100% correct with this. So he goes, gets chopped in half, gets rebuilt, blah, 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 with the Night Sister crew. Mother Townsend kind of rebuilds him to who he is. And he kind of changes from Sith to more or less the godfather of crime in the galaxy. Like, isn't he like the head of the crime syndicate, which is like the Red Crimson Dawn and Jabba's people and all those? Like, he's kind of like the head guy.
Yeah, he becomes It's really complex, but yeah, like he does eventually become, he's setting up. He's basically continuing his original mission. Like, he wants to kill Kenobi. He wants to get revenge on the Emperor for betraying him and not really training him properly and all things like that. And of course, and then Dooku is his new apprentice, so he doesn't like Dooku, and he needs Savage to fulfill this plan. And then, things don't exactly work out, so he falls back on all these other connections that he has already established to get what he wants.
I want that story.
Yeah,
like, I like it. See, that's the movie we need. We don't need Solo. We need Darth Maul. Like, I want Maul.
Sure,
a crazy story.
I'm hoping that even though Solo, and this is pretty much predominantly what the articles are right now, is just how poorly it underperformed. But I'm hoping that we can still get a continuation of some of these characters' stories throughout the next anthology movies, as we were kind of mentioning, or we were diving down that direction at the very beginning of the podcast here, as far as where and how this could connect to Kenobi. It's really exciting because, to reunite Kenobi with Maul, in a live action movie, to see maybe how Maul is left on Malachor, because there's a whole period of time of Maul's life where we don't know what happens. He appears in the Rebels show on Malachor, and there's a whole time period that we don't know how he even got there. So,
I kind of liked Maul showing up, and then again, I kind of didn't. And it's just more in that there's a lot of people that have not watched Clone Wars or Rebels that have no idea that Maul was alive.
Sure.
And so there's nothing that sets that up prior to this. And so that kind of alarmed, because I definitely got a few text messages from people going like, wait a minute, Maul's alive? And I'm like, yeah, he's, right. And so that bothered me, but I got over it. I didn't care ultimately.
It's all part of the machine, man. Like, I'm telling you.
You want to know more? Go for it.
You want to know more about Darth Maul? Go buy the box set of a Clone Wars to hear his side of the story. It's brilliant.
Yeah, but going to the sequel that I think would work the best is exactly. It didn't have to be necessarily a Kenobi, like titled Kenobi, because it's perfectly. You could do it perfectly intertwined. I think a Kenobi story by himself on Tatooine would probably be a little boring. So you had this set up also as well at the end of Solo, that him saying like, "Hey, I heard there's a job on Tatooine."
Mm-hmm.
You know that Maul does go to Tatooine to face Kenobi. There's a lot of things you could do with those three characters intertwined, like interlaced with stories to build on this one great story. And I'd rather see that. I'd rather see one kick-ass movie than like two or three. That's me.
Do you think that we're going to see Forrest Whitaker again?
I hope not. I didn't care anything about Saul.
That is like the last character I'd like to see again. And
Well, I mean, isn't that like the probable story, like the connection, right, to the movies, right? So if you think about what's next, don't you think that's kind of like an arc that would most likely be
Saw
discussed?
Gerrera's character? You think Saw Gerrera's character?
Yeah, I don't think so, because I don't even know why they created him. Really, to me, he was a throwaway character in the Clone Wars series, or not Clone. Yeah, he's in one episode of the Clone Wars, isn't he? And then a couple in Rebels, and then the movie he does not age well.
No, that's true.
By the time you get to the movie, but he's always this. He's just he's a zealot, and that's what he's not really part of the rebellion. He is a little bit in the Clone Wars. That's not even the rebellion though, but like and he just does his own thing. So I don't think he's really necessary to bring back.
Interesting to note that his first lieutenant or what have you makes an appearance in this movie. So that dude that's in the background with the Enfys Nest crew, that guy's in there. So
okay.
As well as we also see Warwick Davis. So reprising, I guess, the role of Weasel, who was in episode 1.
I think someone's doing him a favor to get him a payday.
Yeah. Well, you also have Anthony Daniels as a Wookiee that looks like he came from Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, I was like, what is up with that one? It's like they run out of budget money to make a good-looking Wookiee. I was like, he looked like a Planet of the Apes character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a little weird. Like, I don't know if they were just saying like, okay, these are malnourished Wookiees. These are the Wookiees that they abused. I mean, this is from a different tribe. Like, I don't know, but I would.
But I loved whoever made the Chewbacca costume for this movie, though. I felt that actually looked like Chewie. Whereas in other ones I've seen, you're kind of like, that looks like a weird looking Chewie. Like especially like episode 3 Chewie or.
Even episode 8 Chewie was a little bit more like Salon style. We joked about that. This Chewie, he's been around. He's been in the mud, and he doesn't use Perel. So, well, I don't know. The ending kind of, okay. So the ending has 2 parts. You have this showdown between Beckett and Solo, and Solo learns his last lesson, which is to shoot first.
Yeah, just goes to show Han always shoots first.
Right. So, and the girl leaves him, right? Or does she protect him? Because on first viewing, I thought that she just basically was like, I'm bouncing. But then on second thought, I was like, maybe she's doing that because she's, if she bounced, then the Crimson Dawn, i.e. Maul,
Wolverines
would still come after them.
I agree with she's protecting him, because there's a couple of things that are said in the movie, like Woody Harrelson saying, look, once you show your face, you're in it. You will be tied with that forever, and then that debt's on you. Mm-hmm. And then you have her as well saying, you're not this person. You're the good guy. And she has grown up a lot in those 3 years and become something she probably despises in herself.
A prostitute.
Yeah. Well, not really as a prostitute, but she's, I never thought of her as a prostitute, but she's a lieutenant or whatever, and she's there to do bad missions for him. And Han has still got that innocence to him, that was there the 3 years prior to the main part of the movie. And she doesn't want that to be stamped out. So I think she was doing him a solid by just leaving and not tying him to her. That's how I saw it.
Mm.
I don't know how they resolve it, but I do want to see more with Solo and Kira. and Chewie and Lando. I want to see all 4 of them together. And like, mainly just because I want to see a resolution to maybe this storyline with her and the fact that, I don't know, things go south. Maybe this is how he becomes jaded at the beginning of A New Hope. Because we do see the good side in Han through this movie. And I would like to just point out that the larger character development as Han as a character is that we see that he is a good guy. The moment when he's leaving in A New Hope makes a lot more sense when Chewie's like, hey, what are we doing here? You know, like, he's like, I know what I'm doing, you know, and it makes more sense why he would come back to save the kid. Like, I don't know, like his motivations in A New Hope make a lot more sense because of some of the things brought to light.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I know. I took one big takeaway after leaving the theater. I was thinking about it. I was like, I actually know what my Halloween costume is going to be for 2019, and that is Tropical Island Lando. Because that shirt was awesome. The yellow one at the end, when he was styling and profiling, and I want that as my costume for next Halloween.
That was funny.
2018.
It was funny when she goes in the Falcon and it's on fire and she grabs the cape to put it out. He's like, "Not that one. That's expensive."
It's a designer cape or whatever he said. Custom cape.
Yeah.
You mentioned that shirt in the makeout scene that happens in the movie. In Lando's wardrobe of all places. It's funny because while they're kissing, I saw that shirt and I was like, that's a pretty cool shirt. So then when we saw it again later, I was like, yes, you get to see that shirt.
Speaking of shirts, I want to go ahead and mention Crazy Hank, because Crazy Hank has a phenomenal shirt out right now. And I will tell you that it is probably Crazy Hank's best shirt to date. Have you guys seen it yet?
I don't think I've seen this one.
I'm not sure which one.
Oh, my goodness gracious. You head over to the Jay and Jack Facebook group, amongst other things, like a great group of people, first of all, but a lot of updates for all of our shows. But Crazy Hank is a T-shirt company that is affiliated with Jay and Jack. It's Jack. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Jack's loving you right now. If you ever would listen to this podcast,
yeah. So Jack's new a new venture with Crazy Hank, and his new shirt with Donald Glover on it. It's hands down the best Crazy Hank shirt to date. So I'll let you guys go have a look at that and check it out. I actually might get one.
Great plug there, Chris. And while we're talking about all of the things that we do through Jay and Jack, I would just like to point out that you could become a patron. And, that is pretty cool. Pulling up right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I will say that.
Who designed that?
Crazy.
I don't know, but I may or may not have been critical of a few of Crazy Hank's shirts.
Rightfully so.
But this one is pretty fantastic.
If you don't want to buy a shirt, though, you can even just rate and review us on iTunes. That always helps us out. If you don't want to become a patron member for as little as $1 or $5 a month, helps out all the podcasters on the Jay and Jack network. We do appreciate it. Helps also keep us hosting these podcasts. So if you like Nick, Chris, and I, we are on the Ramblecast. So if you haven't checked that out, you should head over to the Ramblecast. That's basically where we talk about everything other than Star Wars, and sometimes Star Wars. But we try to keep it to Owen and Beru's for that, right?
Right.
All right. Well, we can talk a little bit more Star Wars before we wrap it up and thank our patrons, right?
Because I've got some more nitpicking.
All right. Hey, I don't want to cut the listeners short of your nitpick.
There's still some lots of stuff to talk about. We didn't even cover most of the movie yet. So little things like they made a big deal about the dice in The Last Jedi, but yet the dice are in this too, but yet there's still no reason for the dice. It's like, he just has them on the rear view mirror in the very beginning, and then he carries them around with him. So we don't know why they're important to him. We just know that they're lucky. Did I miss something?
No, I mean, was there supposed to be something more?
I just don't get it. Like, why have this in this random object have some kind of meaning if you're not going to tell us the meaning behind the object.
Tune into Solo 2, where we get to see Han as a baby delivered on the doorsteps of an orphanage with just these two dangling dice.
See, there you go. That could have been the first 20 minutes of this movie, and you wouldn't have had me complaining about it.
Okay.
If only we didn't have lazy writers. We needed Matt.
That's my little addendum. You'll find that in the deleted scenes. One of the deleted scenes I hope that we see, I read an article about it. It's basically is it Tag and Bink? I never read it. They were featured as part of the Dark Horse comic line, but they were basically these two bumbling Imperial officers that were in all of the events of the original Star Wars trilogy. Tags and Bink were here, I believe. Yeah. It's kind of a play on what is it? Guildenstein and Rosencrantz, right? Is that what it is? I'm trying to think of the Hamlet characters. Anyway, they were supposed to have a little bit of a cameo in this movie as officers that I think take Han Solo away after he's basically flunked out or kicked out of Flight Academy. Apparently there was supposed to be like a little 80-second montage. It was the last little bit that was edited out of the movie, but we were supposed to see supposed to fill in a little bit of that 3 years while he was in the Imperial Academy. We were supposed to see him flunking out of flight school or basically getting disbarred and stuff.
I would have actually liked to have seen that too, like him actually in flight school. I was surprised they cut that out or didn't write it in at all.
I wanted to see Han flying a TIE fighter.
Yeah, it would have been cool. Going back to...
I would like to have seen him in his Imperial garb too, and not just this mud trooper outfit.
Yeah, that was cool.
I like the mud troopers. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. World War I scene in the middle of a Star Wars film. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to the dice though, and kind of a joke. So now we've got that origin with him being the orphan left with the dice. So splice in Spaceballs, where all of a sudden, Leia and him are getting married, and they're like, "Oh, you can't because she's a princess." And he's like, "See these dice? It means that I'm a certified prince." There you go.
That's good.
Full circle.
Full circle. Connects it all together.
So another thing I found entertaining but slightly disappointing was the doing of the action scenes with the Falcon. Because like you have the TIE fighter chase scene, which is very A New Hope. You have the asteroid field, which is very Empire Strikes Back. And then even the creature in the whatever it's called thing. The mall is also Empire Strikes Back. So the worm and the asteroid, it's this thing. I didn't hate it. I mean, I thought it was entertaining, but I was kind of like, oh, like it's kind of felt the same as scenes we'd already seen before. And then, to make a big deal about the escape pod and the toys and everything else of like, oh, this is the way the Falcon really looked, with this thing on the front. I really thought they were going to show why that was important or what happened. And then just to have it just shoot off and then that's it. You're kind of like, that's it? Okay. But that's just me nitpicking. But that's just me kind of going like, I really thought that was going to be at least see what it was. We didn't even see what it was within the ship. It was just that on the front of the ship and they shot it off and that's it.
Yeah.
Knowing Lando, I think it's a pretty elaborate escape pod.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, clearly it's a lot larger than that little coffin.
That's his love den.
What's that?
That was his love den that they shot off.
Right. Well, you've seen James Bond movies. You know how they end.
That's where the Hennessy and the cognac was, and all the oils.
Yeah, and L3.
L3, yeah. It's all the L3 oils. You're like,
oh my gosh.
This oil mask going to feel so good.
So weird. So weird.
I like that. I like that as a product. So, the oil, and that little quote by C-3PO sells it.
Yeah.
Another Crazy Hank t-shirt coming. I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I have a question.
Go for it.
Han or Solo, a Star Wars story. Last Jedi.
Oh, do you this to me? I already kind of said it earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like The Force Awakens or Last Jedi at all.
I'm sorry. I meant Force Awakens. Sorry, I meant Force Awakens.
Oh, okay. You're going.
I mean, to me, the way it goes is still Rogue One is the best of the Disney films, which I know a lot of people don't like Rogue One, but I do.
I loved it.
Yeah. And then Solo. God, it's so I really do not like either one. Because I don't like The Force Awakens because of just it's a copy of A New Hope. But I do like the way it's shot and the music and the feeling of the film. And with Last Jedi, I was extremely entertained with it, but a lot of it is a slap in the face of just dumbness. So I don't like either one. I'm sorry, everyone out there who likes those two.
So what you're saying is Solo is better than both?
In my opinion, it is. But it's still not a great film. It's just, it's not a bad film.
Huh. Okay. I have a hard time ranking it against the saga movies. Like in some ways, it's kind of like, and I don't know why I separate them out that way, but I like it. I don't know. Ask me again in a year, but so far I like it better than Rogue One. I think Rogue One is the most Star Wars-y between the
absolutely
two.
Is.
Like, I mean, the way that it ends, it like just leads you right into A New Hope, and that feeling that I get when I watch the Scarif battle scene is Star Wars through and through, and it's so awesome.
Absolutely.
And I would say that Solo doesn't make me feel that way when I leave the theater, and maybe that's why it doesn't have that overwhelming, like this is Star Wars. However, I like the nuance of Solo, and I'm hoping that it's there still, and I'm hoping that it doesn't become too much of a drag when I watch the first heist.
Right.
I could see the first heist and everything with Val dying, like I could see that being like a little redundant on rewatch.
Okay.
My issue is I
didn't rank them for you, Chris. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
With Rogue One, they basically said, okay, we want to show how they get the Death Star plans and then lead it into A New Hope. So they knew they had the last 20 minutes of the film, and then they wrote from there to the beginning of the film. This one, to me, felt a lot more of that, in that, okay, we want to show how Han gets the Falcon. We want to show the Kessel Run. We want to show other things, how's Han meet Chewie, things like that. And so they kind of wrote to those scenes, and so that's why I think it's got a really weird rhythm to it that doesn't feel like Star Wars. And that
I had two directors.
Yeah, and two directors, yes. And Amelia Clark has said that. Of course, I'm probably sure she had to, but she said that Ron Howard saved this movie, which I don't see how an actor would know because they're not there in the editing room. But I'll just take her word for it. Because like I said, I don't hate the film.
It could just be Ron Howard stepping in and being hey, I've been here before. I know how to handle a big budget movie.
Willow. Yeah.
He could have just been like the parent in the room that's able to get the kids to bed on time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I would like to see how it stands up over time, but right now I'm enjoying it more than Rogue One. And The Last Jedi, I'm still enjoying it, but the more on the rewatches, the more I wish I could fix the whole Canto Blight.
Oh, it should never been put in. In my opinion,
I wish that whole sequence could have been something different. Like they could have gone they could have just tried on their own to get to that ship. Uh-oh, that's the timer.
Oh,
we're almost out of time for this podcast. You got any last thoughts on this movie?
Last question. I have a question.
Okay.
The movie's getting a lot of criticism right now. Tired writing is one of the quotes. People are obviously the box office results are terrible. It's actually performing worse than Justice League.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Really successful as a heist movie, apparently.
Yeah. So my question to you guys is this: is the criticism that the media is giving it and the lack of people going to see it justified or not?
It is.
Hmm.
One, you have a large fanboy base that boycotted this film because of The Last Jedi. So that automatically hurt it. And then no one said put out another Star Wars film 5 months later after the last one.
Yeah. Well, and nobody wanted a Solo movie.
Yeah, no one wanted a Solo movie. Yeah. The only movie critic that
who said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. That's funny how he gets his name.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, I just have to bring that point up.
So I'll say this is that I actually feel like it's getting kind of unjustly criticized yes, nobody wanted to have a Solo movie because of the fanboy base that you're referring to, Nick, right? But like after seeing it, and granted, we talked a lot about the things we liked. We criticized quite a bit today, but none of the criticisms from today about Solo were really terrible criticisms. Just little tweaks here and there and oddities. But at the end of the day, after seeing it, after talking about it finally to you guys, and reading a little bit inside here as we're having these discussions, at the end of the day, I still like the movie.
Yeah,
I don't regret seeing it, and I wish more people would see it because at the end of the day, I think it's actually a fun movie to watch. And for people who love Star Wars as much as I do, I mean, I love Star Wars. I'm not a crazy fanboy that's going to be that's out there boycotting for boycotting's sake. Like, dude, get a job. Like, like figure it out. Get out of your parents' basement. Why are you boycotting something about the universe that you absolutely love anyways?
And for once, all of these fanboys can be just rest assured that there is a male at the center of the story.
Yeah.
Sorry. You soon?
Maybe. But like, man, like get over it.
Yeah.
Just get over it and let yourself have fun. Like let yourself get kind of lost in
I saw him mark up.
Yeah. Go for it, Nick.
No, I just remembered a point that I was going to make way earlier ago that finally hit me again. And it was about Matt's comment about the droid rebellion, and with L3. Because the way I always remember it, and I'm not sure where I read this because there's so much EU that happened growing up,
sure,
was that, because that's that famous line in A New Hope where, we don't serve their kind here, know. And there's always two reasons for that. Is that one, they're on Tatooine, a desert planet that has very little, industries because it's a desert planet. And so a lot of these people are being replaced by droids for their jobs. And they didn't like droids for that reason. And then two was that there actually was a droid rebellion. And so they don't like droids because a lot of droids killed their friends and things like that. And this kind of felt odd to me that L3 had such a dominant personality because I don't know if they're going to ever address this or not. Like, why is she this way? Is there truly artificial intelligence now in these droids? Because I can't see someone programming her to be that way.
Well, he said that like he didn't want to wipe her memory because of like.
Well, after the navigation charts, when he was just using her for sex and her charts.
Well, I'm sure that made him go a little crazy, or her a little crazy too. Chris, I didn't get your like. How do you rank it?
Sorry. Yeah.
I was just curious.
That's a really great question. So, if we're ranking the Disney side of things, right? So, I'm going to go ahead and say that my ranking so far, like, and Nick knows this, and we don't have to have a debate about this. I loved The Force Awakens. Like that was for me was like one of the times where we're getting Star Wars again. Yeah. And granted, I bet you a lot of that emotion probably kind of overplayed the movie and the quality of the storyline and everything for me a bit because I got so invested in it. So I will say that I loved. Oh man, this is tough because I really loved Rogue One. I think Rogue One is probably. I'll say this: Rogue One is the best of the Disney movies, in my opinion. I loved Force Awakens and Last Jedi, but I know that Rogue One was a better movie than both of them, in my opinion. And I liked Han Solo quite a bit, so I think Solo probably ranks last of the Disney movies for me. But that's still a high honor. Like it's still miles and parsecs above of the episodes 1 through 3, in my opinion. But so I'm going to go ahead and say probably Force Awakens / Rogue One, followed up by Last Jedi, and then Solo, Star Wars story.
Speaking of parsecs, what did you guys think of that? Like, is that how you envision the Kessel Run?
That he cheated?
Yeah. Well, no, it's just because, like, to me, sometimes it's better to not know, because, like, I didn't hate it, But
they solved a whole dilemma about the parsec and what it was, because it was always like, is it time? Is it speed? Was he traveling, or was it? And there's a lot of debate in the whole expanded universe as to how to settle what a parsec is. So in many ways, they just basically they turned it into a matter of distance. And so the distance between the distance was 25 parsecs, right? So that was a distance, and he cut off the distance by basically going through that field.
Breaking away from that, which I actually, and Nick, you bring up a good question, like how they handled it. Like, that's not how I pictured it.
Yeah,
right.
Not how I pictured it at all. However, I really liked it. Mm-hmm. I kind of like how they visualized the path, right, and that how they had to travel through that whatever thing that the cloud thing, and how that was set up. I thought it was kind of cool.
The maw is actually something that is in the EU books as well. It's in I think Jedi Search, the first of the Jedi Academy books, and it brings up this giant kind of black hole swirling nebula that is in front of Kessel, and it kind of is basically what impairs them getting there. So that part, like, there's still this connective tissue that Disney's keeping with some of this expanded universe.
Yeah, they do their homework.
So
one other thing they also answered, which we didn't bring up, surprisingly, which I thought was cool, because I always said Han,
right?
Because Lando calls him Han or Han. Sorry, Han. And the fact that, he calls him Han, and he's like, it's Han, by the way. And he's like,
yeah, that's good.
Right. Little subtle jokes like that, I always liked that.
That was strong, because that was something that I think that the old, we'll call us the old timer Star Wars fans would have just been like, oh yeah, we've all heard him call him Han. There's no chance to save Han. And we're like, wait, isn't he Han, not Han? Anyway.
The latest meme I've seen that I thought was funny was a picture of Leia, and it said, saying it's a trap before it was cool.
That's awesome. Nice.
Well, we have talked almost, I think, about an hour. I was trying to keep this at about an hour.
We covered a lot. I'm sure there's some things that we forgot, but
I'm sure there's some things we forgot. We have hopes of doing a part 2. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hope that we can make the Kessel run.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
Are you impersonating somebody that might be on that?
That's Jay.
Okay. Well, hopefully Jay and maybe Colleen could join us both for a part 2 review of Solo.
That'd be cool.
Keep our fingers crossed, and we're going to put those lucky dice around Nick's neck. At this point, like to thank some special patrons that make this show and all of the shows on the Jay and Jack podcast possible. Let me see if I can remember all of them. We got Tack from Tokyo, Eckhart Richter, Molly the Millennial, Ed the Letter Carrier, and Maggie the Magnificent. That's all 5 of them. And we really appreciate everything that they do, everything that the fans can do. If you have any feedback for us, and I'm pretty sure we'll be talking Solo again,
and or comments.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the movie? Yeah,
go ahead. You
let us know.
You came up with the greatest email of all time.
Yeah, drop us an email, and you can do that. You can reach Owen and Bruce podcast at theforceiswelldone@gmail.com. Once again, that is theforceiswelldone@gmail.com. That is the email address and contact point for everything Owen and Beru's barbecue.
Great, yeah. And join us again next time. I'm sure we'll be recording again very soon. So any last thoughts, Nick? You want to lead it this with?
No. I think I've said everything I need to say. Unless you guys just bring up something.
No, I just thought you were going to say that this was a great show and it was 1 in a million.
No, that's your line.
All the haters out there, grow up, get out of your parents' basement, stop boycotting something stupid, boycott something real, and enjoy yourself with Solo, Star Wars movie.
I want to know what Anakin Skywalker would think about Solo. Does he feel? Is it better than sand?
Great show, guys. 1 in a million. Don't get cocky, and Maul should have never lit that lightsaber. It was dumb. All right.